This week on RSBANDB Update, the Ninja team is here with Strike 5, but we also have some much-needed changes to the settings interface and more. This week's livestream previews Strike 6 featuring the Grand Exchange. Then we ask, what does this mean for the future of updates? This is RSBANDB Update, episode 778, recorded Thursday, May 28th, 2020. Expansion by Ninja. Hello, everybody, and thank you for joining us for another episode of RSBANDB Update. Tannis and myself here this week, and, we're going to discuss Ninja Strike number 5. Hard to believe we're already up to number 5 on these, eh?
Yeah, pretty quick.
This one is a bit of a leaner one compared to some of the past ones, but we'll get into that in good time, but... I think it's also been a really interesting week in terms of what we saw that's on the way from the Ninja team as well. And, I don't know. You think it's time to have that discussion about what the Ninja team is up to with all this in this Q&A this week, or should we save that for another week? Because you and I both noticed something on this, and it's going to rub some people the wrong way when we say what it is.
You think? Really?
I think so. I think people are latching on to old norms and hoping that they'll come back. But
gotcha.
Yeah, we're kind of getting ahead of ourselves there. If you want to chat with us in game, of course, I am Shane12088. He is Tannis79. And if you want to join our friends chat, lots of people are always in there. Pretty much all times of the day now, thanks to archaeology. That is BitsBytes in-game, and of course, if you want to follow along, you can find full show notes at update.rsbandb.com. So we're going to get straight into Ninja Strike 5 first in the patch notes this week, but before we do that, also listed on the news posts this week, I want to talk about what they're calling the RuneScape World Cups, and they're going to be doing a series of contests on social media detailing what are the best skills, for example, maybe the best NPC, the best boss fight, and they're starting off with one of the ones that, is something that us questers always debate. What is the best quest? There was a pre-survey that was sent out in the newsletters that whittled it down to a top 16. So the first two that get to go up on this run in the World Cup of Quests is While Gothic Sleeps or Desert Treasure. Which one would you pick for those two? While Gothic Sleeps.
Out of those two?
Yeah, because what we're effectively doing here is we're building a bracket, so you're going to have to release that.
Both of those were kind of AIDS.
What?
Yeah, I didn't think it was fun. Probably While Gothic Sleeps.
All right.
Probably.
All right.
I don't know, but you need the desert for
Zaros.
Yeah. Now Gothic Sleeps. I still that's a better quest. It's less AIDS.
All right. I voted for Desert Treasure. And voting closes on the 29th, which will be by the time you guys are all listening to this. But as a recording, While Gothic Sleeps is leading 68% to Desert Treasure's 32%.
Oh, holy shit. I'm in the majority for once.
Yeah.
I mean, other than Birth, but, hey.
I voted for Desert Treasure because it brought Zaros to the forefront, and the lore that was leading up to Desert Treasure really implicated Zaros and Lucian and the Majorat, and I found that really interesting. And I'm going to hoist this banner over everyone and say that I was one of the first Zaros followers, and I was a Zaros follower before it was the cool thing to do. So I got to go with Desert Treasure on that.
You mean when all the bad boys was repping Zamorak, you were over there with Zaros, y'all fools don't know.
Yeah.
What up with chaos?
Yeah, I was there, and I predicted it years before it happened. Just with other things that I predicted 4 or 5 years before they happened. You know what I'm talking about.
Zamorak, you're evil light. Slightly evil.
And that's the thing. And that's the big thing with this. If you look at Dishonor Among Thieves, and that was a quest you had a horrid time with due to the coloring on it, if you look at Zamorak before Dishonor Among Thieves, you would think he was based all around evil. But Zamorak in himself is based around shaking the box and creating chaos to prevent stagnation, which we learned through Dishonor Among Thieves, or if you really look between the lines in the lore up to that. And I'm of the opinion, amongst, I think, quite a few others in Clan Quest, who say that if you had put Dishonor Among Thieves out before World Event 1 in 2013, Zamorak would have likely won that, because it completely changed his backstory.
It may have, but World Event 1 is where they began the work of that. That's where
Right.
I remember saying, okay, they're kind of redeveloping it's kind of like this red god of Zamorak, because it was even in the opening scene, right? You could tell it wasn't the classic good versus evil.
Yeah.
There was more going on.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Other quests that will go up in the following weeks will be Ritual of the Mosharat versus Plague's End.
No.
Following
See,
that,
now how do you put two good ones up like that against Desert Treasure and Gothic Sleeps?
well, that's how you bracket build.
Well, okay.
After that will be The World Wakes versus Recipe for Disaster.
Oh, that's easy, hands down.
Recipe for Disaster, right?
No,
Okay.
I wouldn't.
I would.
Well, because you're a true quest person. I'm a consumer. I like World Wakes.
Fate of the Gods versus One Small Favor after that.
Small favor. Really?
Yeah, I gotta go Fate of the Gods on that one. Because One Small Favor is nice and all for the memes, but in reality it's one huge bottle quest.
It's one huge pain in the
After that, Dragon Slayer versus Gower Quest.
Oh, see, no.
That's one that I'm going to have to really just
That's
deliberate
really
on.
hard, because how do you can't, Dragon Slayer's so iconic, but the Gower Quest was really good. We needed that at that time. We needed to just be like, yes, cool.
Next, Monkey Madness versus River of Blood.
I can't believe they've had to put Monkey Madness up.
Oh, it's going to be another hard one.
It's another AIDS one.
The Children of Ma versus The Light Within.
Both of those are pretty lore heavy.
Yeah. So that's basically Saren versus Zaros at that point.
Yeah, but screw Tarniad, so I'll go with the other one. Because that's Light Within, right? That's when we got to go there.
Yep,
Yeah.
That's right.
Never mind. You can keep that place.
And then Sliske's Endgame versus the Chosen Commander
What?
is the last one. I really wish they would have put the V quest on here.
Dude, that one wasn't a bad... I didn't think it was really that bad of a quest.
Yeah. So.
It was a bad idea. The beginning was bad. But the Dragonkin stuff was fun. That was cool. The good boss.
Yeah. But that's not even on here for the docket. So yeah, this is going to be the World Cups of quests. So, if you have social media, get involved. Vote for these quests. Are
you guys having major debates over in Clan Quest right now?
No, I don't think anyone actually noticed this.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And that's probably my fault as head of Guild Council for not promoting it hard enough.
Shame.
Anyways.
I'll deal with you.
Right. Let's move on to Ninja Strike 5 then.
because this one does have some substantial things in here. And, I think some of the things that we're going to get excited about we've been asking for a long time. So starting off for boss instances, join and rejoin last instance options have been added to the right-click / long press menus on boss instance entrances. All right. I don't boss, so I guess you might need that, but that's just me.
It's nice. It's quicker.
Okay. All right. Fair enough. Custom encounter.
Well, I mean, it's quicker for someone like me who has to go to a bank often.
Right. All right. Custom encounter and enter encounter options have also been added to various bosses. I don't know what the various bosses would be, but okay. Resolved an issue where players could rejoin a next Angel of Death instance, which had already ended, and were forced to log out in order to leave. That's a big one.
Yeah.
And a bit of a weird one, too, while we're at it. Interfaces. All right. So search bars have been added to the animations, titles, appearances, and pets tabs of the customizations interface. Oh, boy. That's a big sigh of relief for me. And, this is one that I was very pleased with this week, but there's actually more on this here, and it actually helped me bring out a customization that I'd forgot about since last October. But we'll get to that when we get to that part of the patch note. But yeah, literally now, if you want to search for any kind of hairstyle, for instance, you can just search it, and anything that has the word long in it will come up. You want to see all the mining animations? You just search for mining in the animations, and they all come up. Simple. Beautiful. Pets, same thing. I mean, I'm not exactly sure how this would work. I mean, I guess if you knew what the pet's name was, you could just search for brains for the farming pet, for example.
Right. But some of the times it's hard knowing if it's like a follower pet versus
right. And I mean, you have no idea where those things are, right? It's always the classification is a bit weird. And there's also a filter button so that you can filter it to items that you only own.
Okay. They
also added an all category to the customizations interface, which will list all items. And this is on, of course, the appearances, the titles, the pets, the animations, and everything under the sun with that. Whereas if you just want one huge, gigantic list of all the titles, then bam, it's right there. And boy, do we have a lot of titles in game just looking at it right now. 14 previously discontinued titles have been hidden on the titles interface for players who did not own them previously. I think that makes sense. If you can't get it in game, it doesn't make sense to have it there.
Yeah, that's true.
Quest lists can now be sorted from both A to Z and Z to A. I thought we could do that before, but I guess not.
Dude. Well, it was broken up into like the free quest versus member quest, and so you kind of had to know that to begin with. And this is really nice. I like this.
Oh, I see. So, I mean, sure, I guess that makes sense. Fair enough. I prefer the classic look of free and members pairing, and that's just the way I always keep it on that.
I mean, that's more helpful if you're a free player.
Yeah.
But
and it's just inertia from having the UI look like that for all the years, right? So
I guess, yeah.
Actually, and I'll say this now, what this actually helped with is that we didn't have this before. Or I don't know, did we have it in the wardrobe interface, or did they just add it to all these other ones? Because it just says, the patch note says animations, titles, appearances, and pets.
Yeah, we had it in the wardrobe, I think.
Yeah, and for some reason I never used that, right?
Yeah, I started to, and it was, yeah. Sometimes you almost have to. But you probably don't have a lot of cosmetics, do you?
Yeah, I do, actually.
You do?
I do.
Okay. I didn't figure you did.
Yeah, I have a ton, and I think most of them are Yak Track, to be honest. And let's see, if you sort availability, it goes. I actually own quite a few. I don't have an exact number on how many are here, but there's numerous pages I have of all my cosmetics that I own.
Wow.
So,
good on you, Shane.
But yeah, I use this to bring out my Golden Matic, which was a RuneFest related item from this year. So that's granted, wasn't in the patch note this week, but just the fact I was looking in this interface and I realized, we all now have search bars here, and I never actually used the search in Wardrobe, as I was mentioning. That the very fact now we have searches in animations, appearance, titles, and pets made me focus the search in Wardrobe, and I used that to find the Golden Matic and equip that for my current archaeology outfit that I use. So
nice.
that's my story about how I found extra stuff with that. In general fixes, the Desert Phoenix can now be continuously auto-pickpocketed as a reward for completing hard desert achievements. And this is your usual PSA with this one, that when it comes to the Desert Phoenix, which the Phoenix Feather is used for one of the Armadillo artifacts. I can't remember the exact name of it right now, but it's also used. Its Phoenix Feathers are also used for the Super Dragon Anti-Fire Potion, the Super Anti-Fire Potion. Now, with this being able to be auto-pickpocketed here, you combine that with the Thieving Cape, getting these Phoenix Feathers just became a whole lot easier.
Oh, yeah. I mean, it really wasn't that big of a deal before.
No, it wasn't.
Like, you had porters or something like that.
Yeah.
But, I mean, a reward
Porters
for anything... anything extra, for the desert task, great. Because those are rough.
Oh, tell me about it. Dominion Towers, still my biggest pain. Doomsayer will now issue a warning about the Araxer boss fight. Ranch Out of Time music track now unlocks properly when the player enters the area. Archaeology changes. Material caches with quest requirements have had these requirements clarified in the Archaeology skill guide. Good. The Fortune perk will now prioritize sending archaeology materials to the material storage over the bank. Nice. Because, I don't know anybody who stores their materials in the material storage over the bank. So, a wandering NPC took a wrong turn at the Lumbridge Market and found himself at Stormguard Citadel. He has been dealt with, in quotation marks.
Huh.
I appreciate the humor in these patch notes.
Yeah, that's great.
And fixed an issue where the perks Refined 4, Tinker 4, and Rapid 4 were not activating as often as they should. Now, moving on into mobile fixes. You can now toggle proximity entity highlighting on mobile on and off via the gameplay settings. And that's the same thing we have on the desktop, where if you mouse over something, it'll show the glow to it, except on mobile it does it based on proximity of where your character is, rather than where your mouse is. Yeah, you didn't know that's how it worked there?
No, I wasn't sure how that worked, but okay. Cool.
Yeah. And I think it helps more to have it on mobile than it does on the desktop client, personally.
Oh, yeah. Well, they're both super helpful to me.
Yeah. Updated the wording in multiple settings and added checkboxes to improve user flow. And now here's the big one. Options on the gameplay settings menu have been divided into more refined subcategories for easier navigation. And the best part about this, we get this on the desktop client too. So, now you have interfaces, and then under that you have things like game interaction, appearance, which controls the transparency of the menus, title bars, slim headers, and so on, information windows, warning screens, inventory, buff bar, game clock. Combat and action bar has their own settings section now, which includes toggling on and off of Revolution and Legacy combat mode, action bar settings, action bar binding, combat XP, how you're going to get your combat XP, the attack options for mousing over players and NPCs, targeting, which is a little bit more important on mobile than it is on PC, and then finally hit splats. A camera settings section, which deals with the camera system, which is, of course, the camera modes, so like Modern, Classic, Freedom, and Freedom Classic, as well as zoom sensitivities. And then you got sensitivity for the keyboard and mouse for the camera. Skills and experience, combat XP, then pretty much every skill that had a settings section from archaeology, construction, fishing, mining. Slayer, the Slayer settings have been moved in here, including the Slayer log, as well as virtual leveling and Grace of the Elves, messaging and social, item drops, and then legacy. This is perfect. You remember our biggest gripe about the settings was, or maybe it was my biggest gripe, is that you had certain settings that were repeated in 2 or 3 different places. And as far as I can tell here now, the only settings that is duplicated is the combat XP setting, being both under combat and action bar and under the skills section. So all in all, this is a massive improvement because, one of the ones you could do before was the Slayer log. You could turn the Slayer log, the Slayer counter on or off in 3 different spots. Now it's only under the Slayer skills settings.
Yeah, that's good. Well, and we talked about that in one of the
monthly bits. Yeah. And it took a while to get to this point, but this needed to be done, and this was years. I say years. It need. I think ever since RS3 came out in 2013, they needed to do this. Honestly, so I am very pleased with this.
Yeah, I think it makes sense,
and it's a lot more logical too, because you're not always guessing of where it's going to be. Right?
Yeah. And that's helpful. Especially when you don't know necessarily and you're just trying to figure stuff out,
Yeah. And, this is a new throning moment where I have to say this is probably my patch note of the year at this point.
Oh, all right.
Because it just needed to be done, and this had bothered me for so long. So that's my patch note of the year.
Well, there you go. You heard it here first.
Improve the Revolution combat icon on the Revolution action bar in the Powers UI, and the icon, which was previously non-interactive, can now be tapped to toggle between Revolution and full combat mode. And pressing and holding on the icon will now provide more information. And this is, of course, on mobile. And recall that on our mobile episode 2 weeks ago, I said this was one of my biggest complaints in this, is that it was just way too hard to activate Revolution. And I had no idea what exactly was happening or whether Revolution was active. Because, on PC, if you activate Revolution, your action bar gets a little gold rim around it, whereas on mobile, you don't have that.
Yeah.
So we'll see what kind of refinement comes from that in the future, but all in all, good changes there. Moving on into the other grab bag of fixes, the charity representatives will be leaving Gielinor on May 30th to continue their good work elsewhere, and for anybody who has your tokens left, you can go still hand them in to those charity representatives until the 30th. The spooky blindfold head override will now appear correctly on the chat head. The drops window will no longer open when using the area loot keybind. I think someone complained to me about this one. So that's good that's been fixed. But that's it for Ninja Strike 5. It felt a little bit more limited than previous ones. But for me, it wasn't even in the Ninja's purview of the thing that took the cake this week. It was actually from the mobile team. So that's definitely one of my favorites.
There you go. More of a ninja chop.
Yeah, there you go.
Or
there you go.
Shuriken throw.
All right. I think with that, we can move on into the live stream this week. This was Mod Porky hosting with Mod Aerator as the guest, talking about Ninja Strike 6, which will be arriving in June.
Yep.
Which is talking about the Grand Exchange.
I bet there's going to be, I bet that's the whole strike. It's going to be centered around. I mean, we saw a bunch of them in the live stream, but I bet there's more.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I bet there's other stuff too.
Yeah.
I hope, maybe. I kind of like the strikes when those are the surprise stuff I like. Don't surprise me with the big stuff, but this stuff, yeah, that's a nice little surprise.
Yeah, and I think the important thing about Strike 6 will be the fact that it's dealing with the user interface side of it. And, when you combine that with what we just talked about, you can tell that this is something that we're very passionate about here. So they went through this on the live stream, a whole bunch of changes coming to the Grand Exchange with this. So starting off, and, this is something that even I never thought of, is that now it says slots 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Whereas previously it would just say empty slot, and it wasn't necessarily clear that you could use keybinds to access those slots.
Yeah, I didn't know that.
No, and I always just use the mouse. So it was news to me as well. Which is why they did that. And if you mouse over it, will show you what the keybind is. They also added clarifications for what each icon does in terms of buy and sell. And changes have also been made. Actually, let me just stop right there. And, I think what we're looking at here is the product of iterating on something that's been around since 2007. And because of that, you can only go so drastically, right? And there's lots of underpinnings of the Grand Exchange that are built in that you can't necessarily change with this. So most of what we're seeing here is evolutionary rather than revolutionary, if that makes sense.
Yeah, well, and they're using a lot of that predicting...
Client prediction thing.
Client prediction stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, and I was excited for a minute because they said they were going to be putting more of the Grand Exchange on the client side, so it's like, oh, cool, so it's going to be a lot faster then. But
well,
no,
it looks like
really
it.
The case. It looks like it, right? But I'm really curious to see how this works out because I mean, it could be brilliant, but if I'm thinking if it has to correct, like they said, it's possible that could get really choppy, right?
Yeah. Yeah, and I'm just going to take this point, and we have a new kind of button style that we saw be unveiled with the bank rework, right? And this actually touches into something Sirion talked about earlier in the month with his article. It's a perfect month for him to put this out there. And I realize, with this being in the content showcase time frame of this update, it's probably too late to make major changes like this. But maybe they should give a little bit of thought and see if it's possible to use the same style of button that you have inside the bank. And there's a good mock-up of this on Sirion's article, and I'll include a link in the show notes to that article at update.rsbnb.com, as well as the actual screenshot of it about this, because yeah, sure, you can keep the buttons exactly as they are in terms of having buy and sell buttons be the same, but maybe you could just change the background of how the button looks to be more consistent with what we have in the game as well. And maybe that's just something that could be given a bit of thought, but I'll definitely include a link in the show notes to that article again on this, because, we're talking about buy and sell icons, and that's precisely where we were. So I just wanted to throw that out there again. But you were saying that you noticed how responsive it looked when they were talking about the search and whatnot, and you were saying you maybe had some concerns about that.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think it's fine in this case, but they said like everything stays the same on the server end, right?
Yeah.
So if it predicts incorrectly, it will just adjust that. So I thought in other cases that could be choppy if it predicts incorrectly.
Right. And see, that's mainly for client movement, and I don't know if you should have used those words there, because it sounds... Because, dealing with the Grand Exchange, I would imagine is going to be a lot simpler than dealing with the way a character is moving around. So I don't know if we're actually going to see any problems like that here. I think it should be relatively smooth, all things considered, believe it or not.
Well, that'll be good. Yeah, that'll be good. And I am like some of the new features are great. It's just like they're weird to describe because like they're almost like faux features, right? Like,
yeah,
it's there, but really,
it's an abstraction.
Yeah,
and you can see exactly how quick it is when you search. When you start searching the entire search window down below, what would previously show the price and whatnot, you effectively get an extra 2 rows of items. So you're going to be able to, scroll through there. And then when you click on one of those items, it will populate the field that allows you to buy that specific item. And then if you go back to the search, it will show the item you selected in a gold border. This looks really good. I have to say, this is well done. The point of it iterating on this interface that for the large part of its existence has stayed the same since 2007.
Yeah, and I like that it's not going to disappear. Like,
yes, and that's another big thing. So if you previously, as it works now, if you were making an offer and you start searching for something, whatever you were doing would disappear. Which, you kind of just work around it. You kind of just adapt to that over time. But this is going to be an entirely new breath of fresh air when it arrives. So they also added a plus and minus 20% button for the people who, just spam click that 5% a few times if they want to insta sell or insta buy something. So that's there.
That's great. I'm sure there's going to be a way for merchants to make a killing somehow just from the button.
No, I don't think so. I don't think so.
Really?
No, I don't think so.
You don't think like someone coming back from PVM, they're already pissed off. They've only got one drop. This big dude got one drop, man. They would need that money right now. You don't think they're going to hit that minus 20 instead of minus 5? Let's get out.
Oh, you mean for an advantage for the rest of us then, maybe?
Well, I'm just saying that's how it works.
All right.
People go PVMing and you get their stuff at a discount, and then people need to go the following day, and then they buy it at a increase.
Yeah.
Because they don't care, because money doesn't count.
Right.
Whatever.
And, one other good thing about the search interface is that if you focus the search box where you can type in the item that you're looking for, that entire search box becomes the focus, hiding the quantity and price per item and the total price as well. Which makes sense, really, because, if you're searching, that's not what the focus is. And that's a smart user interface design, because why do you need to see something that you're not interacting with, right? And it's making the use of the space that's there, because as everyone knows, these kind of central UIs like the Grand Exchange and the Adventures menu and the Hero menu, just to name a few of them, you can't resize them. and that's a RS3 issue that hopefully can be fixed one day, but that's not the topic of this one right now. Here's another good one. Previously, to get out of the search, you would press backspace, which really doesn't make sense. If you're searching, you should press escape, and then that will take you back to the buy offer window if you're in search. And then if you're in buy offer and you press escape again, that will take you back to the main Grand Exchange window where you can choose a slot to buy or sell. And then if you press escape again, that will just close the entire Grand Exchange. So this is, utilizing escape as a way to get out of windows, as it were, and not necessarily need to worry about pressing that backspace button because, backspace.
That's like directly out of Sirion's article.
Well, that's because it's common sense.
Yeah. That's because it's common sense. Yeah. Because
backspace, the very name implies that you're aiming to delete something. And, this is another thing that Apple has done. You'll note that on most of the Apple keyboards out there, and they only, if you had a really big one, you didn't get a delete key, or you're only... They sell their computers mainly with the keyboard that doesn't have the delete key on it, and you're just left to use the backspace. And that's because it is an Appleism that there should be one way of doing things, whether it's removing text forwards or backwards, and you just press an Alt modifier to do things differently on the Mac. So if you press Alt backspace, that's the same thing as pressing delete on Windows. The principle is the same. It's a different topic, but the principle is the same, that there should be one way of interacting with their user interface, and something that is so destructive as a backspace really shouldn't be used to close menus, and that's something that's more naturally suited towards escape. So this was a really good change.
Yeah, well, and especially that you use escape for a lot of other things already.
Yeah,
the settings.
Yeah, exactly. Opening up the main options and settings windows one. So. Let's see, what's next? Progress is now shown on your offers that you're making. So if you're wanting to buy 100 of an item and it's progressing, previously only had a progress bar, now it will show a numerical indicator of how far along that offer is, which is something we didn't have before.
That's cool.
There is also a direct abort button on the main Grand Exchange window on the top right. You can click it and that will abort the offer.
That's nice.
And if the offer is active, it will if it's completed, it will have the collect and repeat option on there as well. And right now, these are right clicks on the current Grand Exchange that we have in the live game, and they're wanting to surface these as other options that are available.
Cool.
You can also edit buy and sell offers, both from within the offer itself and from within the offer page that's showing you all your offers.
That's awesome. But
it's the queue, right?
Right, yeah, it's only an illusion.
Yeah. And this is something that people who want to do this are going to have to take into account, is that it's going to effectively destroy that offer and recreate a new offer with your edited values to it. And it's going to put it in the top of the Grand Exchange queue, because the way the Grand Exchange works behind the scenes is there's a whole list of offers, and certain people who are near the front of the queue have a higher priority to buy or sell to get the items that come in or are requested, that you're going to get sent to the back of the queue if you use that edit option. And they were asked about this on the live stream, and there's nothing that can be done about this because this is just inherent to the way the engine works behind the scenes for the GE. Something they want to fix, but they're not going to be able to in time for launch of this Ninja Strike. So, next up, if you're typing in chat, your key presses will no longer activate the Grand Exchange offer slot. So if you would type a number 1 before and you had your Grand Exchange up and you were in your chat, it would open up Grand Exchange offer number 1 for some reason, which, when you think about it, it's a really silly thing to do. So that's good. That's been fixed.
Yeah.
Sales history is going to have buttons on it for detailed and immediate repeat. Currently, we have those as right-click options.
Okay. So, yeah. Make it quicker.
They're going to have icons for them. And they added a new favorites tab, which you'll be able to use to just store items to, access items that you buy quickly. Buy often.
That is awesome.
Or you can just use it as a little board to do price checks.
Yeah, I love that. That's the cool stuff right there.
Yeah, yeah. And, I was just thinking, oh, okay, this is actually a fun way where we could maybe redo our Grand Exchange portfolios on the website to have something like this following the similar kind of UI model. So it was fun to watch that. And you already know it's going to be on my favorites list, right?
Farming supplies?
Yeah, it's going to be my seeds, my herb seeds and
Your
whatnot.
seeds, yeah.
Let's see. There's going to be 18 slots for favorites. Free-to-play is going to have 6. You can also add a favorite directly from the buy interface by clicking the star on that screen.
Sweet.
And if you're searching and one of your favorites comes up, that will be indicated with the star as well.
Damn.
And
it's kind of like it's smart. Huh.
yeah, this is billed as a ninja project, right? And I know they hired a UX person. I'm wondering if the UX person was involved in this.
It seems like they've been involved in something. I mean, I don't know. Things are coming up roses with UI.
Let's not count our chickens yet. There's still lots of work that could be done on that. What's the phrase? Count your chickens before they've hatched?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And these updates should be coming in June. So it's going to be soon, all things considered. People also asked about max price items. And yes, for some reason now, and I don't know if I'm ever going to have this kind of money, but the buy price now supports the max int value. Previously, it would always be the max int -1. You can put the top value in because of limitations they put in. You'd have to use the plus 5% to get to the top max on that, so that's been fixed. And they also looked into adding something like platinum tokens like Old School has, which is the currency that lets people trade for things beyond the 2.1 bill price. And they said that right now, summoning shards, of course, serve that same purpose. And they didn't do this because they would have wanted players to be able to use platinum tokens as a currency on the exchange, rather than just having them, be a holder for cash. So they would have wanted them to be able to be used as a currency on the exchange, and that's why they didn't do it. And that would have been, once again, too much engine work on there. So, all in all, I'm very pleased with this. I think we should have a little bit of a brief discussion about what we talked about before on this, because Mod Warden kind of alluded to this, right? That in between headline releases, it would be the Ninja team that would be providing the bulk of the content updates. And, I think you just need to say what you said when we got on this call tonight. About the era that we're living in.
Yeah, by any other name, we're in the era of expansions again.
Yeah.
But we're not going to tell people that. We're going to package the smaller updates as a headliner.
Yeah.
We're going to do it the way that we should have did it first time, because we learned our lessons.
Yeah, and see, the thing that I have to say about this is that typically an expansion-sized update is something like the mining and smithing rework, or farming and herblore, or a new skill. But we also need to be able to slim that size down to take those large and extra large updates, because archaeology was definitely an extra large, and be able to say that you can have headliners be large and medium too, right?
Yeah, well, you might get, whereas previously I think we thought of expansions as being maybe like on a 4-month kind of
quarterly basis,
type, quarterly basis, and that's still probably a play, but you're probably going to see the medium might be every 2 months. You know what I mean? Like you might have a medium
month and a
update
half.
2 months later, or a month and a half, right? And those in between, whereas before we were like starving, right? We're like, where's the updates? Where's the updates? Well, now they're giving you serious, legitimate quality of life updates that are being packaged and promoted in the right way, because I'm sorry, you have to face the facts. Weekly updates with RS2. You cannot do them. You can do this you can do, but you can't make, you're not coming out with a bottle quest every week. You can't do that shit anymore, right?
Yeah.
It's too big, it's too complicated, and honestly, I'd rather have it this way, because I want to be proud to be like, hey, yeah, I play RuneScape. You know what I mean? Like, I don't want to play a Mickey Mouse game that you can do an update in a week. I just don't want that. Like, is it clear? Have I made my position as clear as it possibly can be?
I think so. And, Mud Warden kind of telegraphed that a few weeks ago when he was on stream. And, I think we're even further along that path than people realize, because in this week's news post, it says that mods Chaosy, K9, and Shogun have also joined the Ninja team. They'll be joining mods Kalaya, Aerator, Abe, Breezy, Timbo, Carrie, and Dorn. And that's, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. There were 7 of them before, and now there's an extra 3.
Yeah.
And you can do a lot with the team, with a 10-person team. Granted, one of them is in communications and one of them is in localization.
But when you think of it as a quality of life aspect, these extra members, and they're doing the bulk. Like, I don't want people to underestimate the impact that Ninja Strikes are having on the game. There has been major things that never had the time to be addressed have been addressed over the beginning of this, the first quarter of this year or first half of this year, because of these Ninja Strikes.
Yeah.
So we're getting the best of both worlds. Like, we're getting the best of both worlds. We can't have it all. I want it all. We can't have it all. Like,
yeah, this kind of goes back to what we talked about last week with old school type of updates.
Yeah, well, that's what I'm saying. Like, I don't want that update. Like, I want the RS3, but these quality of life. I mean, just look what you were talking about with the settings. Like, we did that monthly bit. Gosh, it's probably been 4 or 5 months ago. 6 months ago,
I think. Yeah.
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 That matters. This counts. These updates matter.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And, RuneScape was built on being the game that gets weekly content updates. But with the amount of polish that you're putting into RS3 at this point, when you have an executive producer who is guiding the direction that it goes, when you see updates that have the polish like archaeology had, it seems almost impossible to put out weekly new content updates.
Well, yes, in that way, I think it was. And you know what the difference is? I think even though there may have been people at Jagex that knew that, it was so baked in the cake. That was the view.
We have to do DNA.
Yeah, that's just part of it. Like, right, RuneScape equals weekly updates, right? That it was just baked in the cake. You had someone that was new with a new set of eyes. I was like, you can't do that,
right? And recall the number one thing apparently that players asked Mod Warden for was QOL updates.
Well, and that's why I'm saying we're getting everything that we want. We're getting the decent, medium, and large size updates, and in between we're getting quality of life. This is, I don't know if it just took someone from the outside coming in, seeing that and being like, no, you guys were actually on the right track. You just needed to market it better. You need to package it right and space it right. Like, and that's what's happening.
Yeah, because how many times in the last year did we say that it was mainly just a communications issue?
Oh, several times. And
yeah,
and that's just a fact. And I think these are working. Even when I watch the stream, I'm thinking, and I wasn't like super into the stream or something like that, right? It was fine, but it wasn't like super exciting or something. But I'm looking at like some pretty serious, like some updates that we've been asking for a really long time, and we're getting them in between, the bigger stuff now. We're actually in a pretty good position, I think, as long as the community manages their expectations. Like, we got to realize in 2020, with what we expect, the quality that we expect, you can't do it really any other way, I don't think, than what they're doing right now. Better. You know what I mean?
I agree. And it's also been telegraphed that there needs to be more quests too. So we'll have to wait and see what happens with that. But all in all, I think that this is just further cemented that that's the direction things are heading this week, and I'm fine with it. A couple of other tiny little things that were mentioned in the live stream. If you're still experiencing FPS drops, let them know. Through all the usual channels. This was as a result of a fix they put in last week, and they think they have fixed the problem, so there should be no more FPS drops with that. And a question that was asked by Mod Porky is, what is a ninja fix? And the answer to that is, if you're at all in doubt of what a ninja fix is, just put it into the forum at rs.game/ninja, and we'll see if they're able to actually put that in and execute on it. And that's, of course, the huge forum that they go through each and every week to see what they can bring in to the Ninja team. And, one thing that I'm actually going to suggest on this, and came up in actually a social media post on Reddit that I was shared with last week. And I don't know if this is Ninja or not, but I'm definitely going to submit this after watching the stream, is that it would be nice to get the old style retro armor into game. That is the early RS2 retro weapons, like the Dragon Longsword, the Dragon Dagger, the Dragon Battle Axe, the Dragon Mace, the ones from when RS2 first launched, as well as the old style retro Saradomin, Zamorak, and Gothix armor as well. That's all in game. And, there's a social media post on this, but I'm going to submit it onto that forum as well, because I don't know if that's a ninja fix or not, if it's some other team that would do that, but I would absolutely love to have one of those 2004 era Dragon Longswords around. So
there you go. I've got a set of the replica armor, Dragon armor.
Yeah, but it's it looks different because they had to upgrade the polygon counts and whatnot. I don't know how these weapons and whatnot would look like, but I think that'd be a fun thing to embark on, and I would definitely jump on that train if that did exist. So,
and you know what I want to see going forward? Like, I would love if we were told or given an indication what ninja fixes were brought up in the player advocacy group,
right?
Because they said everything that was, just so that we know, like, oh, well, this came from the.
So maybe it would be a good idea. So maybe it would be a good idea then on the patch notes to say this came from a player advocacy group. This came from the dojo forum.
I think
this
that would
is
be great.
Internal.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, you don't need to say which player submitted it because that's a privacy concern.
No,
just say that it came from the forum, right?
Yeah. Well, yeah. I mean, and I think that would be. I think it'd be great.
And it could even be a hybrid option too. Like if all three sources suggested it, go for it. List them.
Yes. Exactly.
All right. I believe that's it for the live stream. So let us move on to questions. But before we do that, I'll thank our Patreon supporters for this episode. We got a couple of new ones this week. Run through the list, and I'll make sure you guys get a mention for that. So starting off this week, I'd like to thank 29 Let's Go, Brock H, Cameron, Cass, CGB 900, Christian S, Diana, Jade Gizmo, Jade W, James W, Jason S, Joe M, John P, Jelly, Kevin G, a new arrival, welcome, Kyle, Nora, Our Memories, Ricky A, another new arrival, thank you for subscribing, Rastafa, Rippeth, The Naked Captain, The Lion, Tom V, and Zez. Thank you all of you for your support. It truly does mean the world to us, and as you're listening to this, you're probably wondering, what is this all about? Well, this is about our Patreon page, which you can find at patreon.com/RSBANDB. And, if you don't want to type that in, it's available in the show notes at update.rsbnb.com, or just go to patreon.com/RSBANDB. And there, you can join for as little as $1 a month. You gain access to the entire back catalog of monthly bits. You get a special mention in our notes. You get early access to the show notes, and you get to vote for the monthly bits when we do the votes. And there's not going to be a vote for this one. I'm doing something special because it's our anniversary month. So you'll get to vote next month, so just don't worry about that. But we also do have a VIP tier for $3 a month. You get a special VIP rank in Discord, or mention on the podcast at the start of the month, and access to high-quality stereo AAC versions of the show. And we also have the Insider tier for $5 a month. You get a shout-out each and every week, and you gain exclusive access to the outtakes that we use for the clip show at the end of the year. And if this sounds interesting to you, you can learn more at patreon.com/RSBNB. And we summarize it as follows. We do our monthly bit, which is the bonus show. We do a round table at some point in the month. We did one this month on Double XP weekend, turned into a design session on skilling bosses. And, of course, we also have the Inside RSBANB Update posts that go out on the first week or so of each month. Look at that as kind of like an insider dev blog kind of post for RSBANB Update. Then, of course, we have Movie Night, which was this past Monday. And that was a rather interesting one, wasn't it?
Groovy, baby.
And if anybody wants to listen to the read back on that, the commentary from during that episode, you can just go to the Patreon page and listen to it. Press play at the same time. Press play on both, and you can hear exactly what we were talking about as that played through. And I think we'll be putting the next one up to vote again. Any idea what you're going to put up for vote next month? I haven't decided yet.
Spaceballs.
Okay, I think that's another Earth choice too.
Oh, for real?
Yeah.
Sweet. Cool.
So we'll be putting up another poll for that and let the community choose on that. But once again, thank you to our Patreon supporters for making this possible. Patreon.com/RSBNB. All right. We got a discussion question this week from Sirion, and this is due to his recent adventures with Big Game Hunter. He says he recently started Big Game Hunter, and one of the big problems he has is that the drops are pretty boring. And every drop he gets is the same. Some dinosaur parts, some dragon hides, or if he's lucky, some seeds or herbs. That's it. This turns a training method that is in itself pretty engaging into something that's more of a grind. So my question to you is, how would you spice up the drop tables for something like Big Game Hunter to make the loot more varied, which is, of course, would be similar to most PVM bosses, without making other skilling methods obsolete. I think you hit the nail on the head there. How do you make Big Game Hunter more varied without making other skilling methods obsolete? I think we should start off by asking, have you done much Big Game Hunter?
No, but I am an advocate of money.
Okay.
I think money helps. Money's great. GP drops.
Yeah, but I don't know. That feels kind of boring to me.
Yeah, but it's better than dropping skilling supplies because at least...
Yeah, I mean, that's kind of damaging, right?
Yeah. Either that, I mean, the good thing about it is it's kind of... I think the reason it's not as exciting is because a lot of the drops, right, feed right back into the system of Game
Hunter.
Yeah, and so... But when you go outside of that, if you're dropping resources... Well,
it kind of gets hairy with that.
Yeah, we don't want that. So that's why I've got to go with, like, I'm starting with money. And
and
it does have this big ticket item, so that's what I'm saying.
Right. And see, the big ticket item isn't the problem because you got two of those now. You got the Dragonmatic,
yeah,
and you also got the weapons that come from it.
All.
But in between, it feels like you're just on this grind, for who knows what. So I think the answer to this, and, skillers might not like this, is that if you want it to kind of feed back in and be more lucrative, there has to be risk associated with it. I don't like saying that, but I think that's the way it is.
Well, listen to the roundtable. We talked a lot about how to do that, right?
Because that was the discussion. How do you turn Big Game Hunter into a skilling boss? And the conclusion that we came up with was that what we have right now is really intensive skilling, and it's not really a boss instance. Granted, yes, there's some mechanics of it that could go into a kind of a boss kind of thing, but rather than, kind of tipping it on its head, we came up with the idea of, rather than having something in terms of life, you use your skills in order to help it. And that's what I think a difference is between a skilling boss and, what is maybe pseudo PVM skilling. I don't know what to call this and what realm it sits in, but I don't know. Maybe add more things from Anachronia to it. Add some agility
I'm trying
pages.
to think of like hunter stuff, and I mean maybe even like there's nothing to say we can't come up with like a couple new items, right? Like an experience boosting item for hunter.
That would be interesting.
Something to where we'll call it like the rollback, and you get this item from Big Game Hunter, and it rolls back the nerf of the hunter skill. But only for a short period of time, so make sure you got your poop and
You'd
creep,
like
guys.
that, wouldn't you? You'd like that, wouldn't you? And let's just look at an entry-level boss on this front then. A Queen Black Dragon, for example. You, of course, every kill you're going to get your dragon bones and your hides and your royal bolts, potentially. But there's also the ability to make the royal crossbow. You also get consumables that you can, of course, use in that event, and then you get access to a fairly generic PVM drop table.
Right, but don't PV. I mean, isn't PVM like? I mean, for them, that's a grind too, right? Like
it really is.
I mean, they only have a few big exciting drops, right? I mean, so that's what makes them special, right? So what we're talking about is trying to find something mid.
We're looking for filler content is what we're looking for on that.
I'd rather, I mean, I would lean towards money and or experience because I think it's better than resources. come in through gathering skills.
Yeah, and these things have been in game for almost a year now. And I think if there was a problem with them being engaging enough, we would have seen some buffs to them. Like, looking at the drop table here for the Pavosaurus Rex, which is one of the Tier 3 dinosaurs, you're looking at things like the potential to get dragon stones, large adamant salvage, rocktails, granwall spikes, herbs, palm tree seeds, magic seeds, dragon hides.
Some of that. A lot of that's trash,
some totems. Dragonmatic, which we already talked about.
Yeah. Salvage. I'd be.
You know what I think? And it's just a question of providing more in between, I think. Because whoop-de-doo, you get 2 Arbok seeds or 3 magic seeds, for example, right?
Yeah.
Maybe increase
Too much
that
work
by...
for all that for me.
What if you increase that by, 50%?
For, you could do
like just increase all the drops on here by 50% across the board.
What if you did that 50% on the Anachronia drops, like that were specific to there?
Ooh, that'd be interesting.
That might be. That might be a way to, like, I don't know. You could start there.
And another thing I see, and this is from talking with some people, another thing I see big game hunters being really useful for is for Iron Men. Because it's hard for them to get large adamant bladed salvage. It's hard for them to get dragon stones. It's hard for them to get, I was going to say rocktail, but they can fish that. But it's hard for them to get palm tree seeds. It's hard for them to get magic seeds. It's hard for them to get these dragon hides. You see what I'm going at here? Like, if you're someone who's a skiller and you're an Iron Man, this is your thing.
Oh, yeah. Made your life a lot easier.
So that's the benefit for these. If I'm looking at this from the perspective of an Iron Man, then that's really interesting. But keep in mind, there's the caveat that you need 76 Slayer as well.
And that's probably quite the hike.
Yeah, especially when you're looking at, you need to make all your equipment and whatnot, right?
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
So, I mean, even if you were an Iron Man who had 76 Slayer, which isn't that hard to get, I think it would still be useful.
Yeah, there's no doubt that it's helpful for Iron Man, but you could add in some salvage like that. Fine with salvage.
Yeah, but how do we feel about adding more trash drops?
Well, no, I mean higher layers, like higher tiers.
Oh, so maybe like Rune instead?
Yeah, like more of that mid-tier kind of content, because
right.
that adamant's like really low. So, and as long as it's salvage, I don't mind. That's not taking anything away from smithing. So, I'm cool with that.
Maybe they should drop more seeds.
Well, if it drops more seeds, we can't nerf the farm anymore now. Come on. What's going to happen then?
It wouldn't be nerfing the farm. It would just be funneling people towards that side.
It was like, oh, I know, but the seeds, Shane, the seeds.
I know. The problem with seeds isn't this. It's Slayer, Dark Beasts, Spectres, and whatnot.
Well, right, but we'd be putting more seeds in through it, right?
Yeah. And to be fair, I know, and I have the same issue with Big Game Hunter that Sirion does with this, in terms of doing it, in terms of looking at cross drop tables and whatnot. I honestly think the reason that it's not more lucrative than it is because there's no risk associated with it. Maybe what we need is a hardcore big game hunter with risk where the dinosaur can kill you.
I mean, that's an option, and I go back to the, I like the XP idea. Which is,
what if hardcore big game hunter was the best hunter XP in the game?
But that's what I'm saying, like that you risk XP, like you risk an XP item, like what the capacitor does for the divine charges.
What do you mean in particular? Like
you stored up, like you would go, say you were doing hunter. If you had this item with you, right, you would store up hunter. A certain part of that XP would be stored in this box or what have you, right? And then that box was what you use to go do big game hunter or what have you.
Oh, and it would boost your hunter XP following that then.
Like if you win, you get the XP and the stuff. If you lose, the dinosaur HO XP. You lost that time.
That's in the capacitor, right?
Right, yeah.
And then that capacitor could be used to boost XP in hunter?
I mean, you could sell them, I guess, sure.
Yeah. That's one thing I never looked into is what exactly an XP capacitor does.
Well, this is just like trying to find because I think like PVM traditionally the risk factor is the money that it costs to replace your items. But I think when it comes to skilling, it should be time because that's what skilling revolves around.
Uh-huh. So how would you have it work then?
Like I said, you would, while you were skilling, while you were doing hunter, you would, a little bit of that XP that you would normally get would be siphoned off into some kind of an item, and you would use that, I don't know, in conjunction with bait or something, or you know what I mean, like
right, and that would let you get better rewards from BGH, Big Game Hunter.
No, that would be the price of admission, like if that's what it costs. Like if you win, you get it back, but if you lose, the dinosaur eats your shit, and that's the risk.
So then there'd be an extra barrier to get in than that we already have right now. Yes,
there would be.
But the rewards would be potentially greater.
The rewards could be potentially greater, but it's giving it a risk factor. It is what it's doing. It's costing you something to gamble, essentially.
I don't know how I feel about that. I like the barrier to entry as it is right now because, to be effective in Big Game Hunter, you need the fast traps. You need the thing, at least I think you need the thing, that reduces the number of frogs that are available. You need double surge. You maybe need double escape. You probably want bladed dive. You probably want something with the mobile perk on it. And the way I see it is that is a huge barrier to entry as it already is. So.
Yeah, you definitely need those
right.
things.
So I don't know if adding another thing onto that would be the best idea. But that's just me. And, for once, I don't think I have an answer to this. And that's why it's a discussion question.
Yeah, I guess the easy way is to just have it eat you, but
yeah, and make
that would work in this case. It wouldn't work in probably every case.
Yeah, and then have a safe mode where it is as it is now, and if it eats you, you get more lucrative rewards. So. Alrighty, we're going to move on to tech news right now, but if you guys want to send in your own questions, you can email them to questions@rsbnb.com, or you can leave them at Twitter @RSBNB. Alrighty, and this tech news is one that lots of people have been getting their feathers in a ruffle about, and that's because there was a new executive order signed in the U.S. by President Donald Trump aiming at social media in part on this. And the backstory goes a little bit as follows. Earlier this week, he put out a tweet about mail-in ballots, and Twitter fact-checked him on that. As for who is right on that, we'll let everyone's own subjective realities make that determination. I'm not going to tell you what reality is right on that. But in any case, this executive order targets something in the United States, which this is going to sound really completely absurd here. Section 230 of the Communications Decency Act, which is a law that you guys have in the U.S. that apparently allows platforms like Twitter, YouTube, and Facebook to have, I guess you could say, to not face the liability of content posted on their platforms. It was a law that came in 1996, and the whole goal behind this executive order is to make it one in such that the social media companies should not effectively try and be the arbiter of truth, as the president put it. Or, as in the case that Twitter put it, they want to make sure that both sides have the full story on this. Now, this is an executive order, and what this means for everybody else who isn't aware of how the system works, it's not a new law. It's just the executive branch, the presidency, saying something, and I guess you could say this would probably fall to the FCC, thinking about it, the Federal Communications Commission on this that regulates communications in this front. I think it would fall to the FCC on this in order to have them ensure that social media companies don't do anything to prevent people from being able to express themselves as they see fit. And that is what we're told is the whole reason why this executive order went forward on this one. And what people really got uptight about this week is that Mark Zuckerberg chimed into this debate and says that social networks should not be fact-checking political speech, and that political speech, as he says, is one of the most sensitive parts of democracy, and people should be able to see what politicians say. Now, he also says that Facebook has lines that no one, including politicians, are allowed to cross.
Don't they use some of the most biased, ridiculous fact checkers in the industry? Right? The Daily Caller, right? Tucker Carlson's bunch, the Schwan Air.
There was also
serious?
Vox was used as well, which is on the other side. CNN as well, on the other side as well, was used by Twitter on this. And, I'm not going to tell people what they should think about this, because this is definitely standing on that line of the political and technology side of this. Personally, for me...
I'm choking on irony, Shane. I'm sorry. I need air.
Personally, for me, I don't believe that there should be any fact-checking or moderation on social media platforms. It should be moderation by the user. If you don't like what someone is saying, make their post disappear. It's as simple as that. That's the way I believe that this should be done. And there's something else that people aren't really forgetting about, that are kind of forgetting about this one right here. And it's that the way it normally works when the current U.S. president says something and does something is that he starts off with a huge, big gambit, a huge, big stick, something that people see as earth-shattering, and it's eventually is moved forward to a different point. And, I think what's going to wind up happening on this is that Twitter is going to be forced to do something. They're going to want to do their fact-checking. But I think the best thing that could come out of this on the Twitter side is that if, rather than fact-checking on tweets that appear controversial and all the information might not be there, what they do instead is they simply show both sides equally.
Some things are lies. Here's the thing. Look, private company, right? That's what I'm always told. Private companies don't have to. They do their own rules, man. Self-regulation, right? They can do whatever they want then, right?
And that's precisely the way I suggested that it go. But like I said, the easiest way to make a solution to this is show both sides of the argument on this, whatever it might be. And with that, it's going to make everybody happy, because if you go to Twitter and you see a post, you're going to see a link that is in dispute. You're going to see the way one side sees it and the way the other side sees it. There are two different parallel effective viewpoints on reality going on in this day and age, at least in the United States. And that's one thing that people who don't watch the U.S. might not be aware of, is that, you can talk to one person and they're going to see exactly what's going on as the worst horror movie in existence. The other people are going to see it as complete and utter paradise. And as soon as that is realized, everybody's going to be able to talk to each other yet again. I think at this point we can move on to our next tech news.
This is a different podcast.
Well, no, I mean it's really not, because I know I'm right on this, and because I can see it both ways, and I have before, and that's the only way you're going to make both sides happy on this, is to have something where a tweet that's disputed shows both sides to it. And that's the only way that it goes on this. And, I think we have also been clear that looking at this thing, Section 230 or whatever the heck it was called, probably isn't the best way to go about this, because it gives protection to these companies acting as platforms. And that's a rollback that should be looked at differently. But, I'm not going to claim to be an expert on that, because the entirety of the U.S. government, in terms of all the laws that are at place, nobody really knows how all that works. So
they had no choice. They couldn't go after her on a free speech basis because it's a private company. So They dug up this. And, you at least have to acknowledge the irony of this person bringing a decency case or using a decency clause.
Well, it's perfect. It fits right within his MO. And his supporters are very, very happy today because of this.
Well, they wouldn't know. Yeah, they can't spell decency anyway. I'm sorry. I can't believe it, dude. It blows my mind.
Well,
it blows my mind.
It's a lot easier to take if you can see both realities, which hopefully you'll join me one day on that.
Yes, in the 23rd century, when we're out of this. When we can go to our replicator, Shane, and our holodeck. I can't wait.
I don't know if that's the way we want to go, but okay. Next up, 2,000 games and counting. GeForce Now's library is taking this shape, and what they have done with this, you'll recall we talked about GeForce Now not too long ago, where this game streaming service from NVIDIA was initially bringing in all video games out there, but large publishers like Blizzard weren't necessarily pleased of having their games like Overwatch on there. So as a result, now GeForce Now is going to be opt-in on the side of the game publisher. Those that haven't opted in as of May 31st will be removed. And what this effectively does is it clears the way to making it so that NVIDIA isn't necessarily undercutting anyone out there who might want to be on their own streaming service or might not want to have their game stream at all. Right now, some of the games that are going to be available come May 31st include Apex Legends, Counter-Strike Source, or Counter-Strike Global Offensive, Destiny 2, Dota 2, Fortnite, Rocket League, Terraria, and Tom Clancy's Rainbow Six Siege. And, with this, they say there's already 2,000 games committed to the service and over 500 instantly playable, with more being added each and every Thursday. And the result of this is that any game could pretty much be played on this streaming service before, whereas now it's going to be opt-in for the publisher, which is the way you want to do it, because you don't want to undercut the publisher on this. And, it was seen as a nice convenience service for gamers, but now you need to be opt-in on this. And, I wonder how some people who are using this service are going to feel, right?
Yeah, I mean, at least they got a big library to fall back on. But I'm curious to see, are we going to see the launch of any more streaming sites? Like, will games be pulled off because the publishers want to start their own streaming services?
Yeah.
Look at you, Ubisoft. I'm very curious to see if they do that.
Yeah, and the good part about GeForce Now was their slogan of "You bought it, you own it," so that even if you bought the game on whichever platform it might be, you'd be able to play it anywhere, even if your computer didn't have the horsepower for it. And that was what really convinced people on this.
Yeah.
And, you have, smaller games out there. I don't know if World of Tanks is going to be on there, but I see that on the list right now. So, and you're entirely right that, we need to ask what exactly is the next question, is the next game streaming service going to be? Because, we're in the same boat with video streaming services, right?
Yeah.
How many video streaming services are you subscribed to?
Well, but that was kind of brilliant, though. They carved up our stuff to get more money out of it. And everyone's like, yeah, okay, we're... yeah. But the gaming stream is a little different. Like, Stadia didn't do so well. So will people still want to invest in this space? I mean, to me, this is an indication that they do.
I've never tried one. Have you?
I haven't either. No.
Okay.
No, I've done the PlayStation streaming before, liked it, but I've never done the Stadia.
Right. Yeah, and I'm not even sure how it would be quality-wise, so maybe it's something I should give a try to. But, like I said, if you got an NVIDIA card and you were banking on this, well, it's kind of unfortunate. But I think the biggest and brightest spot at the end of the day is that this goes directly now to the developers, and they need to beware of that. I'm going to move on to the next piece of tech news right now, and this is an Android story, which neither of us are Android users, but it's something that we should be definitely paying attention to, is they are going to be rolling out a new version of Google Messages with their new communication standard called RCS that is going to actually support end-to-end encryption, meaning that your messages won't be able to be read by anyone along the chain except for the user you desire to send it to. And Google wants RCS, this new communication standard, to be the successor to SMS text messaging, which has existed since the late 1980s. And the part about this that many people are not realizing is that RCS is actually designed as an open standard. So if Apple wanted to, they could adopt the standard, but Apple doesn't do that.
No.
So this is the thing that all Android users can say with this once RCS starts rolling out and the carriers start supporting it, is that this will be an open standard, and anybody who wants to make a new RCS text messaging application for Android is going to be able to. You're not going to be locked into, just having to use the Google ones on this. And the way it's designed is that it will be end-to-end encrypted through the entire process, so people aren't going to be able to read it. And, iMessage can already make this claim, and, we've seen the privacy white papers that Apple's put out about iMessage being end-to-end encrypted, and the keys are stored at Apple, and they don't ever give those keys out, or so they say. And that's a question we could, of course, ask and, debate whether or not they have. But what it comes down to at the end of the day is that with this being an open standard, if anybody wants to, Microsoft or practically anyone who's a mobile operator who has a claim on the mobile side could just make a new text messaging application and adopt it. And, I personally believe that the internet should be done with open standards, so I think this is a good thing. I'd like Apple's iMessage to become an open standard. I don't think it ever will. But nonetheless, this is a good piece of news going forward for the advancement of, what has just become standard SMS text messaging and whatnot over the internet.
Well, it's great for people that aren't privacy oriented, right? I mean,
yeah.
And for everyone else, I think they probably think this is the way it is.
Because, the way it is right now is that SMS text messages, standard text messages, aren't actually encrypted and the carrier can read those.
Yeah, right.
So that's something that people might not be aware of. So that's why Google is wanting to push this so hard.
Well, and I mean, it's a good time, right? Because I think people have moved away from the WhatsApp ever since it got gobbled up.
Gobbled up by Facebook, yeah. Yeah. All right. Let's move on to other things. We got our May skill of the month that ended, our attack skill of the month. We had Earth win that one with 4.5 million XP. Everybody else was pretty quiet during that month, so congratulations to you, Earth. And then I can announce that our skill of the month competitions for June are ranged, starting on the 5th, running for 10 days, and agility running on the 15th for 10 days. You feel like training any ranged or agility this month?
No. No, I can't say that I do.
I'm wondering if we'll even get one sign up for the agility one because, I mean, you know how agility is and the reputation it has.
Yeah, it's not fun.
It is not. It is not. All right.
I might buy some feathers to
I
see how that rolls.
I hate that item. I hate that item. All right. If you guys want to sign up, you can do that at rsbnb.com/skotm. And, of course, the link will be in the show notes, too. All right. Let's go through some achievements. We get a reprieve after the last 2 weeks.
All right. So let's start off with Earendel.
Yeah, sounds good.
Earendel.
Yeah.
With Earendel 120 with 99 Constitution on May 27th. Then we have Himski with 99 Rune Crafting on May 27th. We have Nayfan with 99 Strength on May 27th. Mayfan again. Nayfan with 99 Invention on May 27th. We have with 120 Archaeology on May 27th. Himski with 99 Divination on May 26th. Jaguar 007. Oh, that's a hard one to get, I bet. 120 Archaeology on May 26th.
Nicely done.
Rippeth with 99 Smithing on May 26th. Not bad. And Suits with 99 Ranged on May 26th. And then Tim 2 with 120 Invention on May 26th. Let's see, we got one more? Yep. Yitzi with 120 Archaeology on May 26th. Very good, everyone.
Then we have Arendelle 20 with 99 Strength on May 25th. Papa with 120 Archaeology. R3PO with 99 Archaeology. Then moving on to the 24th, we have One Rib with 99 Agility. Seth Eroth with 99 Fishing on the 24th. Hemsky with 99 Cooking on the 23rd. Cledio with 120 Hunter on the 22nd. Compsci with 99 Archaeology on the 22nd as well. Hemsky with 99 Woodcutting. Jammy Jenny with 99 Defense. Suits with 99 Summoning, rounding off the 22nd. And then on the 21st, we have O Kosov O, or I guess those are zeros, rather, with 200 million Defense on May 21st. Arendelle 20 with 99 Attack. Jag 3 Dagster with 99 Archaeology also on the 21st. Madhouse C with 99 Herblore. And finally, the Lion with 120 Woodcutting on May 21st. Nicely done, everyone.
Very good. Very good.
All right, so pick of the week time, and we were talking about this. What should we do for pick of the week, because we haven't really brought anything new forward. There's no new TV shows and whatnot. So I went into the library of games, currently playing back and forth. And one of the games that I'm putting onto the list right now, and oh boy, it went up in price. It was on a good sale last week. I'm glad I got it back then. It's called Hearts of Iron 4. You can find it on Steam, and it's a Paradox game, and they're the same folks behind games like Stellaris and Europa Universalis 4 and Victoria 2. Hearts of Iron 4 is their World War II nation simulator, I guess you could call it. And the whole idea behind it is you start in 1935, you take your nation through World War II. You can follow a historical mode or not. There's lots of DLC you can choose to purchase, but you don't need to. And with that, lots of weird things can happen. Like, for example, the UK becoming an absolute monarchy, the Ottoman Empire reforming, and the Confederacy that was thought to be defeated after the U.S. Civil War coming to power in the United States. So lots of weird things can happen in this game. We also had El Salvador conquer all of Central America, too. So as you can see, lots of weird things can happen in this game if you take it off historical mode, and that's always kind of fun to see what happens and watch this if you're into this kind of history. This one has a tech tree associated with it. It's not nearly as involved as some of their other games like Europa Universalis 4 or Stellaris, for example. This one is more based around the combat of your troops and combating enemies and taking map tiles and so on and so forth. So if this sounds like your kind of thing, you can find it on Steam. It's a Paradox game. It's called Hearts of Iron 4, and you can play it in multiplayer, so you can have multiplayer play sessions. Only one person needs the DLC if you really wanted to go that way with it. And, just let all the alternate history kind of stuff happen if you really wanted to. And it supports mods, too, if that's your thing as well, and you wanted to make some even stranger things with this happen. So that's the pick of the week, Hearts of Iron 4. It's a few years old, but it's still fun.
Awesome. I might pick that one up myself.
Yeah, I don't know how it would go for accessibility because there's lots of tiny clickable items in there.
We'll just have to see if it's turn-based and I can use my magnifier.
It's not turn-based.
Then... Oh.
It's consistent. But you can pause it if you're playing... actually, you can pause it at any point, but you can pause it if you need to just take a break and examine some kind of things.
Okay.
Yeah, it's not turn like Civ, not turn-based.
Okay.
So, but yeah, I mean, it's very amusing when, you see the Ottoman Empire reform itself, right? In the 1940s, after we thought it was done at the end of World War I. So, and that was one of my projects in the game. I wasn't the one behind the Confederacy in the U.S. The computer handled that.
Confederacy.
And all it took to get the Confederacy to happen was staging a coup in Florida.
It wouldn't probably take much. Yeah.
So
some might say we're already there.
What did you say? I think you could say that, what you said about if fascism came to the U.S. or what that would be wrapped in.
Oh, it was that's a famous quote, that it would come wrapped in a flag carrying a Bible.
And
I don't know who said it.
And that's what happened in this alternate history in Hearts of Iron 4. So if that sounds interesting to you, this is probably a game you'll enjoy. All right, what have you been up to on RS?
So I've been gathering energy on mobile a lot, and I am still working archaeology. So I'm at the 83 spot now, and I don't know. I guess I'm just going to have a bunch of Bandos collections when I'm done with this. Because I've got like 20 artifacts from this area. And
what level are you right now?
83.
83. Yeah. I think that's the point where you can start almost grinding Tetra Compass pieces, right? Or no, that's a little bit later.
It's got to be close. I mean, I have a bunch of them. Yeah, so...
I know I did a chunk of archaeology training by grinding Green Gobbo Goodies 1 Yeah, that's the one at 83 that ends at 83. It goes from 76 to 83. Tetra compasses with that. 34.5K for completing the entire collection. That's also the one that needs weapon poison and lots of vulcanized rubber.
Yes. Yeah, I have been going through lots and lots of that. Well, I will be going through lots of that when I go to turn all these in.
Yeah. Okay. Anything else, or still on that?
Yeah, I mean, I've really been.
push?
I mean, I'm still jamming on the archaeology.
All right. Sounds good. As for me, I hit 92 archaeology, currently working for level 93, and this one's a little bit interesting, I find. It's kind of at that point where completing the collections and completing the mysteries is going to not get you all the way. And, one of the things I've been struggling with, and I'm actually working on a couple of ways to try and fix this, is that, nobody's out there has made an archaeology calculator yet that tracks the amount of XP you'll get from actually doing the excavating of the artifacts. Like, sure, you can say you're going to need 20 of X artifact to get to level 93, right? But one of the problems with that is that it doesn't count the excavating XP to get those artifacts. And then, you following that have the option of either buying the materials on the exchange or going up to a cache to gather those. So that's something I'm working on, trying to see if there's any kind of patterns that I can find, or maybe some kind of general assumptions to make on that would allow for an archaeology calculator to be made that would factor that in. I know there's one out there that's made by someone that assumes 20% of your XP is going to come from excavating, but that's an assumption, and I haven't been able to verify if that's true or not. So if anybody out there is listening and has any ideas on this, about how this is all working and how this all interact, or how the precision interacts with how quick it takes for you to excavate a certain artifact, talk to me. Message me in game. Talk to me on Discord. I'd like to talk about that kind of thing right now. So this is a call for help. If anybody knows, has done research into how those mechanics work, let me know. But yeah, aside from that, not too much. I'm still on that archaeology push, and you and I were kind of talking about this, that, it's been a long time since I've actually pushed something for this long.
Yeah, you've surprised me, Shane.
Yeah. I think
really
the last time I did this was farming.
Oh, wow. Okay. Yeah, I mean, I do this when we get, skill extensions or new skills, but this is the first time I've enjoyed it for this long, and I'm not tired or burnt out or over it,
Yeah. And, I think one of the most important things to look at on this is that, on your run to 200 mil, I'm not running to 200 mil. Sorry, I didn't mean to say that. If someone is running to 200 mil, at least to 120, you're going to have a varied training method, right?
Oh, yeah.
So
switching every once in a while.
It's going to get you're going to change it up. So, but yeah, that's all I've been up to. I don't think there's anything else much left to say on this, so I think we can leave it at that. You good?
I'm good.
All right. Well, with that being said, we'll be back next week for another episode of RSBANDB Update. If you want full show notes, you can find those at update.rsbnb.com. And, of course, if you want to subscribe to the podcast, which is the best way to get it. So, if you forget that it's out, you can just have it automatically delivered to your favorite podcast listener out there. Apple Podcasts, Google Play, Spotify, Pocket Cast, YouTube, practically anything under the sun. Just visit update.rsbnb.com/subscribe. And if you want to chat with us in the middle of the week, just join our friends chat, BitsBytes. So with that being said, we'll see you next week for another episode of RSBANDB Update. Take care, everyone.
See ya.